I'm Bob Savikanis. Welcome to our program in a nutshell. Today we have a very special guest in the Reverend Michael Clotton. Father Mike is a graduate of the University of Scranton with a BS degree in sociology, Christ the King Seminary, in addition to Boston College, where he received his master's in education. He was ordained a priest in September of 1987 in the Diocese of Scranton, and he has spent 15 years working in the school system, including an assistant principal at Bishop O'Reilly High School in Kingston. He's the former director of the Pontifical Mission Society for the Diocese of Scranton. He has traveled extensively working in third world countries, including Tanzania, Ecuador, Mexico, and Haiti. Yearly, Father Mike makes travels to Haiti, working with an organization called Hands Together, and does the mission appeals in the U.S. for Haiti for Hands Together. He's the regional spiritual director of the Lay Missionaries of Charity. He is a chaplain at the Wilkes-Barre Veterans Administration Hospital. He's a chaplain at the State Correctional Institute in Dallas, also a chaplain at the Whitehaven Center State School. He's a pastor of several churches in our area, including the Immaculate Conception in Freeland and Good Shepherd in Drums. He's also an FAA licensed pilot, and I believe he also has some NASCAR experiences. Father Mike, welcome to our program.
Bob, thanks for having me here today. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for coming out with us here in this busy schedule of all the things that you're involved in doing. You certainly have had and have an interesting career. I guess I'll start with Haiti first of all then. It seems like you've spent a lot of time in Haiti, going there yearly. Tell us a little bit about what the situation is like in Haiti and what are your experiences? Out
of all the countries I've been to and throughout the world and been lucky enough to be there, I love Haiti the best. Haiti is the poorest country, Bob, in this hemisphere. But if you go there, you wouldn't necessarily know that. Maybe looking around at the homes and stuff like that and the poverty of the people. But there's a spirit in that country that I have not found anywhere else in the world. People are open, kind, loving, happy. Do you know that there are no known cases of suicide in Haiti in spite of the poverty that's there? January 12th of 2010, when they had the earthquake there, a good bit of the country was destroyed and literally hundreds of thousands of people died. But yet many of the people who live in tin shacks put their shacks back up and life went on as they should. Haiti is an experience. And I go to Haiti, not so I will change Haiti, but that Haiti will change me. I need it.
So when you go to Haiti, tell us a little bit about what is the experience like? You arrive and what are the people there like? And
well, as you heard, as you introduced me, I work with a group called Hands Together. Father Tom Hagen came down to Haiti in 1987 with a group of students from Princeton University and began a missionary work there. Father Hagen employs Haitians to do all the work that he needs to get done there. They are the educators, they're the cooks, they're the cleaners, they take care of everything. Father Tom's goal is to walk away from Haiti one day and have Haitians running all of Hands Together. And Hands Together, as I said, we educate students, we feed people. Mothers, for instance, will come in and cook for the children. The place where we stay is in Port-au-Prince. We travel to a city within the city called Cité Soleil. Cité Soleil is about the most impoverished area of all of Haiti, right outside of the city. And we'll go into medical clinics and work there. We'll go to the schools and work there. We're the Missionary Sisters of Charity. Mother Teresa Sisters run an orphanage just around the corner from Father Tom. Twice a week we'll go into the city and do a wound clinic. I learned years ago how to do sutures, and I'm not a doctor. But it's a great experience if you go there, that there's so many different ministries that you can kind of plug into.
So how many years have you been doing this annual visit?
The annual visit, probably out of the last 25 years, I've probably gone about 23 times.
Okay. So if our viewers were interested in participating in some capacity, how would they do something like this, and what are some of the benefits that the Haitians receive from financial donations and or just whatever assistance can be given?
It's a great question. At this time, travel to Haiti is really not recommended by the State Department. For instance, when I go now, I usually go by myself. There have been times in the past, and hopefully in the future, where I'll be able to take groups again. And as I said in part of my introduction, I take people down to Haiti so Haiti will change them. Money that is sent to Haiti goes to Hands Together, is used, for instance, just to buy cloth so mothers can make uniforms for their students. It helps to pay for food, medical supplies, the medical clinics, Father Tom now has several vehicles, a roving medical clinic that can literally drive all over the place. It's a four-wheel drive bus that can get anywhere in Haiti. And he provides just basic medical care for people, particularly young people too.
So you've also been to Ecuador, Tanzania, and a few other third world countries. What drives you to want to go to these countries, and what are some of the additional experiences that you've encountered?
I got to be honest, Bob. The first time I received a phone call from the mission office in 1988 asking me to go to a third world country, I had to look at the phone, third world country. And it really was not on the bucket list. But you know what? The first country was Ecuador, and I just fell in love with the experience. There's nothing more that can put a priest in the presence of the people than traveling to a third world country. And I experienced that first in Ecuador. We went to Guayaquil, and again, another impoverished area. And it's working with these people knowing that I'm not going to go change their life dramatically, but it helps me become a better minister when you can literally be there right with the people and ministering to them.
Your service is amazing. When I read through this list, the biography of the different places you've worked and things that you've done. Let's switch a little bit now and talk about the VA. You're a chaplain at the VA. Tell us a little bit about what the experience is like working with our veterans and assisting them and helping them.
I got to say that God has really reached his hand out to me over the years. As I received the phone call about missions, 14 years ago, I received a phone call to go in and fill into the VA for 6 months. And there I am 14 years later. And what a great experience. We've got these men and women who served our country who are now in great need. In addition to the medical facility that deals medically with patients and veterans, we have a nursing home up there. There is a SARP unit that deals with drug and alcohol. There's a mental health clinic there. So that facility is a great outreach to all of our veterans. And something interesting that you won't find in any other hospital in either valley is that every veteran who comes into the VA must be seen by one of the chaplains within 24 hours. So it's a great opportunity for us to just be there for them. Say, you know, God is present for you here, you want to talk. We find quite often with the other chaplains and myself too that some of the guys particularly just want to sit and talk about experience that they had in their life. We've got our older men, particularly who were in Vietnam, who went through PTSD but didn't realize it at the time, and now are carrying around a big backpack of emotions. So we get the opportunity to sit and listen to what they have to say. I think it's one of my finest ministries to go out and minister to these men and women who served our country.
What is your typical day like when you go to the VA? As far as, again, I know you gave us a couple examples, but what does it usually entail?
We go in, we get the list, and we literally go to floors. With COVID, it's a little difficult. There's some areas of the VA that we're not permitted to go to because of COVID restrictions, and that's a good thing. For the first few months, there was not one COVID case within our nursing home, which was wonderful. But it will take me, for instance, I'll go up to an intensive care unit and just knock on the door, say, I'm Father Mike, my job here is to say hello, tell me what's going on in your life. And it might be 45 minutes later, I'm out of that room. Some of the veterans want to talk a lot. I had a call last week. One of the veterans, I was driving on the turnpike, got a call from the VA. This veteran was in intensive care, and he was so worried about his wife at home, who was alone. So I'm driving up the turnpike, and thank goodness for Bluetooth, so I called the wife at home. So ministry with the VA is not just at the VA. Several times I've gone down to Fort Indian Town Gap to conduct religious services for veterans who have passed away. And done various religious services in the valley for the men and women who have died at the VA. So it's not just walking up and visiting a patient. And you know what? We also deal with the staff too. They are incredibly dedicated staff at the VA, every single one of them. And sometimes they just need to say, Padre, give me a couple minutes. And next thing you know, it's a cup of coffee and we're dealing with life issues.
So another segment of our society and population that you deal with, I've seen, is a chaplain at the State Correctional Institute in Dallas. And what is that like dealing with the inmates with that population as well now?
A little disclaimer there. For 13 years, I was a chaplain at SCI Retreat, which recently closed. Technically, I'm on the books for Dallas, but I haven't been there yet because of COVID. But having spent 13 years at SCI Retreat in Hunlock Creek, what an incredible ministry. I often say to the guys, and that was an all-male facility, I don't know the man that came into the prison. The men that come to the prison, who come to the chapel, are men who realize that they've made mistakes in their life. They want to have God as a component of their life, and they want to be able to move on. Not 1 minute when I walked into any prison that I've ever been in have I felt absolutely afraid in any way, shape, or form. These are men who have made mistakes who want to get on with their life. And God is an important component of that. And I just help them along the way. And when I was at retreat, we had a liturgy committee. They took care of setting up the chapel. They did everything. I just showed up and did some work, talking with them. I would go into they call it the RHU, the Restricted Housing Unit. In the old days, they would call that the hole. So that's an opportunity to go down, guys that are in a cell kind of by themselves, most of them, to talk with them. Celebrate the sacrament of reconciliation, just be there also for the staff too. So it's a great opportunity, again, another organization where it's not just the inmates that need a little bit of help, but the staff there too.
How receptive are the inmates to what you have to offer them?
That's a really good question. I often say, we get the good ones who come into the chapel, okay? There's a big, long walkway, and you're just walking along with inmates, and I make a point when I'm walking up and down that walkway, I make eye contact. Hey, how are you? Hello, morning, how are you? They may not be Catholic, they may not be Christian, they may be Muslim, they may not have any religion at all, but I think that one-on-one contact, even at an eye level, to be able to say to them, hey, how are you doing? Or hello. I think that that's important. So although they might not agree with religion or Christianity, at least they know I'm a regular guy just hanging out, wanting to do what I can to help out.
So you've also worked in the educational field for quite a few years, being a former assistant principal, I believe it was.
Yes.
At Bishop O'Reilly in Kingston. What was that like working with students? Again, there's so many comparisons of your life and its career and your career, what you've done.
I'll be honest, when I got that phone call to be disciplinarian at a high school, I thought to myself, God, what are you doing here? But you know something, a very wise man told me when I took the position. He said, Father, these students not only need justice, but they need mercy too. And I would hope to be able to say that in my capacity as disciplinarian and telling, somebody fix your tie or go get a haircut or something like that, that we're giving mercy also. Justice and mercy needed to go together. And, I'm still in contact with an awful lot of those students today. I've been in contact with one for the last 24 hours who's been dealing with some legal issues, who, after all these years, reached out. He's a 44-year-old man dealing with a difficult situation right now. I would have Saturday detention, and sometimes some of the students would have to do a double detention. Well, this is, we're talking 20 years ago. They would serve their second detention driving over to Whitehaven Center with me and celebrating Mass with the residents of Whitehaven Center. So there was a little bit of, they have to come to Saturday detention, but they also got to go to Whitehaven Center. So I had another adult in the van with me. We'd go over there and just celebrate liturgy. There'd be a student sitting here who might be a bit of a punk, and I'll use that word, but then a resident from Whitehaven sitting there with their arm around them and hugging them and stuff like that. What an experience. I would hope that some things like that were transformational for these students. So that was an interesting position to be in. With an incredible staff at Bishop O'Reilly High School, from the principal to the rest of the staff, they were all great people there.
So when we look at our viewing audience and the grandparents and parents and students or whatever, how would you encourage young adults to get involved in some of the organizations, some of the activities that you've just mentioned?
You used the perfect word, Bob, activities. It is my contention that when we get people active in things, that they're going to make the next step. I had one girl from Bishop O'Reilly High School who still every now and then will come back to Whitehaven Center. Give me a call. Father, are you going to say Mass there now? Because of COVID, we haven't been able to say it recently at the center. But it's an experience, an activity that they had in their youth that says, I can do this again. Just going on those mission trips. We used to, in the beginning, we would take high school students, students transitioning from junior to senior high school. That experience is transformational. My family doctor, his son, became a doctor and now on a regular basis works in third world countries when he's able to just go down there and say, that was a great experience. when you put the activity with a church setting, they get it. The connection is made. And I'd like to think that some of those changes were lifelong changes.
And I have to say, knowing you for quite a few years, you're quite a motivational type person. You're always so friendly and happy and outgoing and everything. So I'm going to switch to Father Mike a little bit now, to the person of Michael Clotton. You're an FAA licensed pilot.
Yes.
A little bit of experiences about that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I was a high school teacher before I was a priest. And one of my students was poor in math, and I was a math teacher. So I tutored this young man for math, and his father was a flight instructor. So we bartered.
Okay.
And I ended up getting my pilot's license out of it. And never told my parents about it until after I got my license. And I'll diverge and tell this cute story. I got the license, and I told my dad, for Father's Day, a friend of mine has a plane. You, Mom, and Dad, and I are going to go up, and we're going to fly over the house. So we go out to the end of the runway, and the pilot is in this seat, and he says, I'm not feeling well. He says, hold the brakes. So he gets out of the aircraft, and my father's in the back seat, my mother's back there, and I said, I think I can do this. So I pushed the throttle forward, and we start to take off. My mother says, my father's yelling, what are you doing? What are you doing? My mother has rosary beads, and she's banging me on the back of the head with it. And I bring out the license and show it to them. My father said, land now. So I circled around, land. He got out of the aircraft. He said, I have enough trouble walking next to you. I'll never fly with you. My mother would fly anywhere with me. And that was, it's really provided some nice experiences over the year. When I was in the seminary, on Sunday nights, I used to take some of the sisters from a little airport nearby, and we'd fly over Lake Erie at sunset and say the rosary. Just what a great experience to get a little bit closer to God. Something I always wanted to do as a child. I had the opportunity to do it. And although I'm not active as a pilot at this moment because my medical's expired, once you're a pilot for life. And just being up there, you know, closer to God, you just can't explain it. Have you gone in private planes?
No.
Okay. Bob, someday you're going to go up with me, okay?
Someday we're to fly. Okay. Let's switch now from planes to cars. You're involved in NASCAR a little bit, from what I understand, the Pocono Long Pond racetrack. What are those experiences? Could you tell our audience?
Yeah, I went as a fan years ago. I met somebody there who asked me, knew I was a priest, and asked if I would say some prayers, and I did, and I've been there for at least the last 20 years. I have the great opportunity on Sunday morning at Victory Circle before the races begin at about 9:30 in the morning to celebrate Mass with the fans that are there. Some of them come right around Victory Circle. Others are in the stands. I also work in what they call the control tower, which is a whole other area. Get a little bit of training and stuff like that. But I'm not going to call myself the chaplain for the track, but to be able to bring the presence of God to something like that. NASCAR is the only major sport in the United States that begins with a prayer. And I'm so happy about that. I've had the opportunity on a couple of occasions to lead the prayer right before the Mass, right before the race, rather. Often I'll do it for the ARCA races or the minor races ahead of time. So I have a dual purpose there. I do have a job there, but I'm also up there doing the priest thing, too.
And a fan.
And a fan, exactly. Yes, I can remember sitting in the parking lot my first time saying, this is absolutely wild, you know. And then to be able to go from a fan to be able to be a part of the experience. I was literally just up at the track today, involved in something else. They have Pocono Organics up there, and I was up there at their facility, just having lunch at the track, you know.
So just based on all these experiences and everything, our audience has to be saying, wow, what an incredible man. Let's turn to the church a little bit, if we can now. You know, the church has had some challenges, the Roman Catholic Church, over the years, and the shortage of priests and everything. So how is the church addressing some of the challenges and some of the issues that have been facing it lately, shortage of priests and things?
The elephant in the middle of the room is that whole sexual scandal, Bob. Okay. It really hit the church hard. The church made a lot of mistakes over the years, but we are committed to moving forward with the church in something like this. I'm so glad that the report came out by the Attorney General's office. And it's given us an opportunity to say, here's the mistakes we made, now let's move forward. And I think that we are moving forward with that. The programs that our diocese has, from Veritas training to the adults, we're doing a great job in the Diocese of Scranton in dealing with that issue right now in protecting children. One of our number one jobs. If you don't learn from your mistakes, you're going to repeat them. And then this whole COVID thing, too, has challenged us also. I don't think God caused this, but I do believe that God is saying to us, let's give you a time out here for a few minutes, 10 months as we are right now. And it's given us an opportunity to relook at the church. Who would have thought a year ago that we'd be doing Mass on YouTube each weekend? My one parish, we have an FM Mass. People sit in the parking lot, they can turn on their car radio, listen to Mass, and then somebody brings a communion. A year ago, who would have thought something like that? Right. It's whole new ways that's forcing the church to reach out to people. Our vocation situation, numbers are starting to come up a little bit. We have a unique situation in this diocese, and I'm very lucky to have stationed with me Father Arun Lakra from India. Father belongs to a religious order. He came over a year ago, October, and he's been ministering with me. He's fluent in English, and next spring, in all likelihood, 3 members of his congregation will come over to the United States, to the Diocese of Scranton. It's interesting that Father Arun was telling me his grandparents were converted by Christian missionaries. So here he is now, he and his religious order are coming back to the United States to help us in our conversion of the people who are Catholic. We need priests. And great men like Father Arun and the other men from his order are really going to do a great job for us.
I've had the experience of you being my pastor at one time down in the Plains area of Luzerne County. How does it feel as a priest being moved from different parishes around?
Yeah, that's I've learned to downsize when it comes to moving. In the old days of the priesthood, you would get a phone call and say, Father, we need you in a certain spot. And you just went. And that was a little tough. Things are a little bit different now in the diocese. They'll advertise when a parish is open, and you can apply for it. And so I've been lucky enough in the last couple of years to be able to say, I like this particular area, that parish became available. But it's a good thing, I think, for us to move around a bit. You learn some things in a parish, you go to the next one, you can try that there. It didn't work here, so I know it's not going to work there. So moving around is not a bad thing, too. We're dedicated to God and to the people of God. The people of God are not just in Plains or Whitehaven or Freeland or Drums. They're all over the place. I have to say this, every move that I've made that I didn't really want to, God has shown me something better than I ever expected when I got to the new place.
So we have the upcoming holiday season and everything. So how is the church adjusting for the Christmas season with masses and just in general?
Bishop Bambera has done an awesome job in giving us lots of information on how we can celebrate the Eucharist and celebrate the Christmas holidays. Sanitization, social distancing, masks are must in churches. When was the last time you heard of an outbreak in a Catholic church in this diocese? Because we're following the guidelines, they're doing a great job. This year, the bishop has given the permission to have Mass on Christmas Eve at 2 p.m. So my 2 churches, each one of them will have 5 Masses between Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, giving more people opportunity to come to church, to be socially distant, but to celebrate the Mass for Christmas. Not only present, but on YouTube and, of course, then in the parking lot, too. We're covering all the bases.
So with the upcoming holiday season, how would you encourage your parishioners to support the church, again, with some of the tougher financial situations they may be encouraging?
I'm really surprised and happy that collections are not as bad as people would necessarily think. People realize that the church is a center for outreach for the community. So our collections, although are down, are not down as bad as I thought that they would be. We have been fortunate enough to keep our staff and not have to furlough anybody in my 2 particular churches. So financially, I'm certainly not saying we're great, but the church, we do have an obligation to support the church. It's not a nice thing to give to the church. It is an obligation we have on our part to support the church because the church does the work of God. So I encourage people, maybe you haven't given your envelopes since this whole thing started. Send in your envelopes. You can mail them in to most of the churches. Our churches are open during the day. You can drop them off. Having that financial resource helps us outreach to other people. We just received 80 poinsettias yesterday that are going to go out to all the elderly in the town. So just be able to take a poinsettia plant to somebody who's homebound, leave it on their porch, knock on the door, and say, here's the plant. To see the smile on the face of somebody who's been kind of homebound this whole time and seeing a plant, it's the collections that help do little things like that.
Okay. So we look at the overall career that you've had and continue to have. What are some of your proudest accomplishments?
Wow. The fact that I can get up every morning and celebrate the Eucharist. 4 days a week, I'm in the confessional at 6 a.m. Something like that. When a priest celebrates the sacrament of reconciliation on an individual basis, that is such a spirit-filled moment. So, yeah, I got a pilot's license. I rode a motorcycle, and I did all the other stuff. I like working at NASCAR. Those are all peripheral things. I think my greatest accomplishment is to be able to be a down-to-earth, one-to-one person with parishioners who can approach me and say, hey, I got this problem, or can you help me deal with it? When somebody comes to me like that, I put my head on the pillow at night and boom, I'm out.
I know you brought some articles, some artifacts with you from, I believe it was Haiti, one of your trips in Haiti. Is there any particular story or something that you want to relate to us about?
This particular process, I'll pick it up if it's okay. As I mentioned, in the year 2010, the earthquake occurred in Haiti. The Cathedral of the Assumption was destroyed at that time, and the bishop at that time died in that destruction of that cathedral. Father Tom had gone by the rubble many times, and he picked up just pieces of stone. And you see a small piece of blue glass right here. That's part of the stained glass from the cathedral in Haiti. This is one of my treasured possessions because it represents what Christ would see, the destruction of the temple in Haiti, but the church is built up. And we take those stones, you put them on the cross. This cross is not a sign of destruction, but a sign of hope. And the cross in the church has always been a sign of life, not death. And although so many people died, including the bishop of Haiti, I look at this cross and I say there's great life, not only in a third world country like Haiti, but in the Diocese of Scranton also.
So with the upcoming year of 2021, what will Father Mike's schedule look like? What will some of the activities you're looking forward to doing?
Wow, that's really great. I'll laugh at this. We have a parish cruise planned for Alaska in August. Okay. I hope to get to Haiti in the springtime when things get calm down a little bit. Just continuing my ministries, they at times they're a handful. Somebody will often say to me, Father, all these ministries, each one complements the other. If I have a bad day in the office and I go to the VA and I'm dealing with somebody, a veteran who's really having a tough time, it energizes me. So I'm not saying, oh God, I've got this today, this day, this day. Wow, I get to go to the VA today, and I get to go to the prison today, and it's an enjoyable thing. So none of that stuff is a burden to me. So I just look forward to being able to get up in the morning and saying, I've got all these ministries to do, and I put my head on the pillow at night happier than I was the day before.
Well, Father Mike, I just want to thank you for everything that you've done in our community and continue to do in our community. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Bob, and to you too, and to Marianne also.
I want to say thank you again for all that you have done and for being a friend as well.
Good.
And thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Bob.
This is Bob Savakinas in a nutshell. Thank you for tuning in.